For years, I sent money believing I was good enough, but my wife ruined my life. This body carried cement for years. Today, it carries regret.
My people, in Kampala, there is a kind of poverty that does not shout. It sits quietly in the corner of the room, watching you eat, watching you sleep, watching you wake up tired. That was the poverty that lived with Zerayo Okoli. Zerayo was a man of strength, but strength alone does not feed a family. He had a wife he loved and a child whose future rested entirely on his shoulders. Every morning, he stepped out of the house with hope in his chest, and every evening, he returned with disappointment in his hands.
Wait! Before we continue, smash that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss amazing African folktale stories like this. Hit the like button if this story moved you. It really helps our channel grow. Comment below. Tell us where you're watching from and which part of the story touched you the most. I want to see all your thoughts. And if you're craving more African folktales, check out the Bumped app on the Play Store. Hundreds of stories waiting for you. Okay, now let's get back to the story.
Jobs came and went, money disappeared faster than it arrived, friends began to avoid him, respect thinned out like smoke. At night, Zerayo would lie beside his wife, staring at the ceiling, listening to Kampala breathe through the open window. Distant horns, barking dogs, the sound of people still fighting life while others slept. And in those quiet moments, a thought began to visit him. Leave. Not because he wanted to abandon his family, but because staying was slowly killing him. One evening, after another day that ended in nothing, Zerayo sat outside and watched his child play barefoot on the dusty ground. Something broke inside him, not loudly, but deeply. That night, he told his wife, "I will go to the UAE," he said softly. "I will suffer there so that you will not suffer here." She cried, he promised, they prayed. And a few weeks later, Zerayo Okole left Uganda with a small bag, a big heart, and a belief that distance would turn into destiny. Dubai received him with heat and indifference. No one cared about his dreams. No one cared about his past. He became a construction laborer, waking before sunrise, sleeping after sunset. From the ground floor to the highest floors of unfinished skyscrapers, he carried cement bags and gravel, until his shoulders burned and his palms split. Every lift of simiti was a conversation with pain. Slowly, his body began to change. His muscles hardened, not for beauty, but for survival. Hunger became a routine. Exhaustion became normal. For 3 long years, Zerayo fought gravity and heat, telling himself every night, "This pain has meaning." When the building was completed, management looked at him and said, "You are strong. Stay. Guard this place." That was how Zerayo became a watchman. Alone at night, walking empty hallways, listening to echoes, waiting for morning. He did not know it then, but this was only the first step toward a life he would later regret. Night work teaches patience. As a watchman, Zerayo learned silence. He learned discipline. He learned how to stand for hours without complaint. After 1 year, a security company noticed him and moved him again, this time as a bouncer. The pay improved, his confidence returned. His body, shaped by labor and discipline, became his identity. Then came the night that changed everything. A powerful Dubai prince visited the venue where Zerayo worked. While others were busy showing fear and respect, Zerayo stood calm, alert, unmoved. The prince noticed. Later, he called him aside. "Who trained you?" the prince asked. Zerayo smiled bitterly. "Life." That answer amused the prince. Within weeks, Zerayo Okole became a personal gym trainer to royalty. Money arrived differently now, not in coins, not in struggle, but in numbers that made sense. Every month, Zerayo sent about $5,400 back home to Kampala. He sent it faithfully. "Use it well," he told his wife. "Build, invest, prepare our future." And she assured him. For 6 years and 7 months, Zerayo stayed away, working, training, sacrificing. In total, he sent over $350,000 home. To him, this was not money. It was bricks, land, security, pride. Back in Dubai, he earned over $9,000 monthly, yet lived simply. No reckless spending, no loud life. Because a man who trusts his home believes his absence is temporary. But distance is dangerous. Time changes people. Money tempts hearts, and trust, once blind, sees too late. Zerayo did not know it that while his body was growing stronger abroad, something else was rotting quietly back home. Distance does not announce its damage. It works quietly, like termites in a wooden house. As the years passed, Zerayo Okole remained in Dubai, sending money, sending instructions, sending love through phone calls and voice notes. At first, his wife answered quickly. Her voice was warm, her words were reassuring. The house is progressing, she would say. The land is secure. Your child is growing fast. Zerayo believed her. Why wouldn't he? Trust, once given, becomes a habit. But slowly, things began to change. Calls became shorter. Messages took longer to reply. Excuses replaced details. When Zerayo asked for pictures of the house, the angles were always strange. When he asked for land documents, the conversation shifted. When he suggested visiting, she laughed it off. There's no need, she said. Everything is fine. From Dubai, Zerayo tried to ignore the small discomfort in his chest. After all, he was a man with responsibility, a man building a future. Suspicion felt like betrayal of love. Still, at night, when he lay alone in his room after training the prince, silence asked questions his heart refused to answer. Back in Kampala, life around his wife was changing. Neighbors noticed new movements, new company, new confidence. She dressed differently now, walked differently, spoke differently. Money had changed the way people greeted her. And somewhere between comfort and greed, patience began to die. Zerayo remained unaware, faithfully sending $5,400 every month, believing his sacrifice was taking shape. He did not know that while he counted months, someone else was counting opportunities.
Wait! You can enjoy more stories from our Bumped app on Play Store. Go over to Play Store, search for Bumped, install the app instantly for free. Hundreds of stories waiting for you to watch absolutely for free. Or check the description of this video. The app link is there. Open it and download Bumped app instantly today. See you on Bumped.
Money is a test. When it comes in small amounts, it humbles. When it comes in large volumes, it reveals. Zerayo Okole's money did not arrive in noise, but in consistency. Month after month, year after year, over $350,000 sent with trust, not supervision. At home, the money began to speak louder than Zerayo's absence. His wife no longer consulted elders. She no longer asked advice. The respect that once surrounded Zerayo's name slowly shifted away from him and settled on the money itself. And money has no loyalty. Land was sold quietly. Properties were liquidated silently. Decisions were made without consultation. Each time Zerayo asked questions, he was met with irritation. "Do you think I'm foolish?" she snapped one day. "Do you think I would destroy our future?" The anger scared him. He apologized. From that day, Zerayo learned something dangerous. Silence in the face of disrespect. Back in Dubai, his life appeared successful. People admired him. He trained royalty. He earned well. But behind the image was a man who had handed over control of his life to love and distance. At night, he would sit alone, scrolling through old photos, telling himself, "When I return, everything will make sense." But some returns do not heal. Some returns only reveal. And while Zerayo counted down the months to go home, his home was already preparing for a life without him. There comes a moment in every man's life when his spirit begins to whisper what his heart refuses to hear. For Zerayo Okole, that moment came on an ordinary night in Dubai. He had just finished training the prince and returned to his room, sweat still clinging to his skin. As he lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling, A sudden urge rose inside him, not suspicion, but concern. He picked up his phone and called home. The call rang, and rang, and rang. No answer. Minutes later, his wife returned the call. Her voice rushed, impatient. "I was busy," she said. Busy with what? Zirayo wanted to ask, but instead he apologized for disturbing her. That night, he asked gently, "Can you send me updated pictures of the house?" There was silence on the line, then irritation. "Why are you asking for pictures every time? Do you think I am lying to you?" Zirayo felt shame crawl up his chest. He quickly softened his voice, explained himself, reassured her of his trust. She ended the call shortly after. That night, Zirayo did not sleep. For the first time since leaving Uganda, doubt sat beside him like an unwanted guest. But he pushed it away, reminding himself that love must be trusted, otherwise it dies. The next morning, as always, he sent the money, $5,400. Even doubt did not stop his sacrifice. But doubt never comes to stop you. It comes to warn you.
So tell me, what lessons have you actually learned? I would really love to hear your comments in the comment section down below. And remember to support this channel. Please subscribe, like the video, comment, just say something. Even a word could literally mean a whole lot. So I want you to tell me, what lessons have you learned from this story? Trust me, these are situations that most people actually go through. I want to hear how you dealt with the situation that you were faced with.
By the 6th year, Zirayo Okole began to plan his return. Not loudly, not proudly, quietly. He told his wife he would soon come home just to see things, just to rest, just to breathe Ugandan air again. Her reaction surprised him. "There is no need," she said quickly. "Finish your contract first. You can come later." Later. That word began to appear too often. Later to visit, later to inspect, later to decide. From Dubai, Zirayo began to notice patterns. Whenever he mentioned coming home, tension followed. Whenever he suggested managing the investment himself, arguments erupted. Whenever he asked questions, he was accused of mistrust. Still, he stayed. Why? Because a man who has sacrificed too much becomes afraid of discovering that his sacrifice was wasted. Back in Kampala, the world around Zirayo's wife had fully shifted. The respect she once received as a married woman had transformed into something else. People whispered. New faces appeared. New loyalties formed. And then, quietly, without ceremony or announcement, a decision was made. Zirayo's future was sold piece by piece. Land disappeared. Properties vanished. Promises evaporated. By the time Zirayo finally booked his return ticket, the life he believed he was building had already been dismantled. He was flying home with hope, but hope was no longer waiting. Zirayo Okole arrived in Kampala quietly. No celebration, no announcement, just a man returning home with a heart full of hope and a suitcase heavy with gifts. The air felt familiar. The roads looked the same, yet something inside him felt misplaced, like a man walking through a dream that did not recognize him. He took a boda straight to the address he had memorized for years, the place where his house was supposed to stand. When he arrived, he stopped breathing. The house was not there. Where walls should have risen, there was emptiness. Where gates should have stood, there was dust. The land he believed he owned stared back at him like a stranger. Confused, Zirayo approached a nearby neighbor. "Excuse me," he asked gently. "The house that was being built here, where is it?" The neighbor looked at him closely, searching his face. "You don't know?" the man finally asked. That question pierced him. Zirayo's phone slipped slightly in his hand as he dialed his wife's number. It rang once, twice, then she picked up. "Where are you?" she asked sharply. "I am home," Zirayo replied. "I am at the land. There is no house here." Silence. Long, heavy, dangerous silence. Then her voice came back, cold and unfamiliar. The land was sold. Zirayo felt the ground move under his feet. "Sold?" he whispered. "Why?" She said, "You were not around. Things happened." His chest tightened. "What about the other properties?" Another pause. "They are gone too." The truth arrived without mercy. Before he could ask another question, the line went dead. Zirayo stood there, surrounded by strangers, holding a phone that suddenly felt useless. The future he had carried for nearly a decade collapsed into nothing in front of his eyes. Slowly, painfully, another truth found him. His wife was no longer his wife. She had remarried, not yesterday, not last week, but long enough to feel normal to everyone except him. Zirayo did not scream. He did not cry. His body simply refused to cooperate. The man who survived years of hard labor in Dubai sank to the ground, defeated not by poverty, but by betrayal. And in that moment, something inside Zirayo Okole broke. Something that would never fully heal. Zirayo Okole did not go home that night. After the call ended, after the truth landed, after the dust settled on the land that no longer belonged to him, he walked without direction. Kampala moved around him, alive and busy, while his world stood still. People laughed. Cars passed. Life continued, but Zirayo felt like a ghost walking among the living. He found himself in a small bar, one of those quiet places where nobody asks questions and everybody minds their pain. He sat in a corner, staring at the table, replaying years in his head. The sweat, the nights, the money sent with faith. He ordered a drink, then another. Alcohol did what it always does. It numbed the edges first. For a brief moment, the pain softened. His thoughts slowed. His chest loosened. That night, Zirayo slept on a bench outside the bar, holding his bag like it was the last thing still loyal to him. Days passed. He tried to call his wife again. The number no longer went through. He visited places he once knew, but faces avoided him. Whispers followed him. Everyone seemed to know his story except him. That was when drugs entered. Not as rebellion, not as enjoyment, but as escape. Something to quiet the questions, something to silence the images of Dubai skyscrapers and empty land in Kampala. The muscles that once lifted cement now trembled. The body that trained princes began to shrink. Hunger returned, this time without dignity. Zirayo avoided mirrors because mirrors do not lie. Slowly, people stopped recognizing him. They said he looked sick. Some whispered malaria. Others shook their heads in pity. But the sickness was not in his blood. It was in his spirit. The man who endured heat, labor, and loneliness abroad was now fighting an enemy he could not train against, his own broken heart. And as nights grew longer and bottles emptied faster, Zirayo Okole began to disappear. Not suddenly, but slowly. Time did not heal Zirayo Okole. It only slowed him down enough to think. Weeks passed, then months. The streets of Kampala learned his footsteps. Some mornings he woke up unsure of where he was. Other mornings he remembered everything too clearly. The drugs no longer worked the way they used to. Alcohol no longer numbed the pain. It only reminded him of it. And in the quiet moments between one escape and another, memories lined up like judges. He remembered the first day in Dubai,
The first cement bag he lifted, the first dollar he sent home with pride. He remembered refusing pleasure so his family could build a future, remembered living small so others could live big. And slowly, painfully, Zirayo realized something that cut deeper than betrayal. He had not only trusted his wife, he had abandoned himself. There were warnings he ignored, questions he swallowed, elders he failed to consult. He had believed love alone could protect money, distance, and time. In African wisdom, a man does not build a house without checking the ground, but Zirayo sent bricks without ever touching the soil. One evening, as he sat outside a closed shop watching the sun sink, an old man approached him. The elder studied him for a long time before speaking. "You look like a man who carried water in a broken pot," the elder said. Zirayo laughed bitterly. "I carried too much," the elder nodded, "and you carried it alone." That night, Zirayo cried for the first time. Not loudly, not dramatically, but deeply. Tears for the years lost, tears for the child he no longer knew, tears for the man he used to be. For the first time, he did not blame alcohol, drugs, or fate. He blamed ignorance. And in that painful honesty, a small truth finally settled. What destroyed him was not only betrayal, it was blind trust without wisdom. Zirayo Okole did not die, but a part of him never returned. With time, the streets released him slowly. The drugs loosened their grip, not because life improved, but because exhaustion took over. He began sleeping more, talking less, watching the world with eyes that had seen too much. His body remained thin, his face carried stories he no longer explained. Sometimes he sat alone and watched children play. Somewhere among them was a child who once called him father. A child growing up without knowing the weight of the sacrifice that once tried to secure his future. Zirayo did not chase revenge. He did not confront the past. Some wounds are too deep to argue with. Instead, he learned to live quietly with the truth that money without oversight becomes temptation, that distance without presence becomes danger, and that love without wisdom becomes blindness. In African lands, elders say, a man who sent his eyes ahead of himself will still stumble. Zirayo sent his sweat, his years, his money, but he left his eyes behind. Today, when people see him, they whisper. Some pity him, some judge him, but Zirayo has stopped listening to noise. He knows the truth now. Not every smile protects your future. Not every promise survives time, and not every sacrifice is appreciated by those who receive it. His life became a warning, not spoken loudly, but written painfully. And if his story travels far, it is not to spread bitterness. It is to remind those who are still building. Be present, be wise, protect what you work for. Because sometimes what ruins a man's life is not poverty, but the trust he gave without God.
So tell me, what lessons have you actually learned? I would really love to hear your comments in the comment section down below. And remember to support this channel. Please subscribe, like the video, comment, just say something. Even a word could literally mean a whole lot. So I want you to tell me, what lessons have you learned from this story? Trust me, these are situations that most people actually go through. I want to hear how you dealt with the situation that you were faced with.